So, when a major spiritual figure passes away, who gets to tell their story? Who owns the truth? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly pretty sharp dispute over the final years of the mystic Osho. It's a conflict sparked by a tell-all book from one close disciple and a blistering rebuttal from another key insider who says the story we're being told is just a complete fabrication. At the heart of one side of this story, we've got Anando, who was one of Osho's secretaries. Her book paints this picture of a really special, super intimate relationship. It's like she was the one who saw the real Osho, the guy behind the master, the one who was just so easy to be with and fun.
But is that the full story? According to another key eyewitness, that whole picture, it's not just a slight exaggeration. They say it's a complete fabrication. So yeah, what is going on here?
Okay, so this really is a tale of two bucks. We've got two competing stories from two people who were right there, in the inner circle. And this isn't just a friendly disagreement, it's a battle for the historical record. First up, we have Anando. Her book, OSHO Intimate Glimpses, lays out her side of things, all based on her personal memories of being right there with him. And then, on the other side, you've got Amrito. He's a medical doctor, and he was Osho's personal physician during those exact same final years. He wrote this incredibly detailed rebuttal, basically saying her book is designed to mislead people. His whole point is, hey, I was there too, and that is not what happened. And this is where we get to the real heart of the conflict. Amrito's not just saying, oh, our memories are different. No, he's claiming the book has major falsehoods, specifically designed to undermine the very people Osho himself chose as successors. So you see, the stakes here they're huge. All right, let's break this down. The first big point of disagreement is this claim from Anando, the idea that she had this unique, constant role right by Osho's side all the way to the end. Now, this right here, this is really the foundation of her whole story. The book claims Osho uniquely made her both caretaker and secretary, and that implies she had continual access to him. I mean, that's a huge claim, right? It basically positions her as the ultimate insider. But Amrito's rebuttal just pulls the rug out from under that. He lays out a totally different timeline. He says, look, for most of this time, another disciple named Shunyo was the main caretaker. Anando, he says she was just a temporary fill-in when Shunyo was sick. And here's the real kicker. During a time when Osho was gravely ill, Osho himself specifically told them not to tell Anando he was sick. And then, for those critical final 4 months, it was Amrito, the doctor, who was the full-time caretaker. And all of this leads up to the most dramatic point in this whole disagreement. What actually went down on Osho's final night? So in her book, Anando makes this incredibly powerful, really emotional claim. She says she was with Osho during his final hours. She describes being on the night shift that entire last week, being in his room the whole night before he died, and then handing off to Amrito in the morning. Amrito's response, it could not be more blunt. He just says this is all totally fabricated. I mean, there's zero wiggle room there. He's saying that this incredibly important, pivotal scene in her book just didn't happen at all. And Amrito backs this up with some very specific details. He says he was the one in the room every single night for the last 4 months, sleeping right there beside Osho's bed. He even describes how frigid the room was, the only light coming from a plasma globe, and he makes a pretty solid point. He definitely would have noticed if another person was in the room with him. So why? Why would these stories be so completely different? Well, according to Amrito, it's all part of a bigger, politically motivated story that Anando is trying to sell, this idea of a male takeover of the whole organization. The way Anando tells it, the power shift was sudden and dramatic. She basically says, the moment he left his body, the men took over. It really paints a picture of a coup, right? That the men just swooped in and pushed out all the women who'd been in charge. But again, Amrito comes back with a timeline. He says, hang on, this wasn't some sudden takeover. He points to things that Osho himself did. Like, back in April of '89, Osho created an inner circle and appointed a man, Jayesh, as the chairman. And then by September, he'd replaced his female caretakers with men. The point Amrito is making is crystal clear. This was a transition that Osho himself started, a good 9 months before he passed away. And to drive this home, to show that this shift was obvious to everyone at the time, Amrito brings in a quote from Shunyo, the main female caretaker. Her reaction to these changes back in September was, well,
It was intense. She said it might be the end of women and that she literally went and vomited. That really doesn't sound like something that happened out of the blue after Osho died, does it?
So that brings us back to the question. If Amrito is right and these are fabrications, what's the motive? He argues it all comes down to a long-running power struggle, a fight to control Osho's legacy.
Amrito actually has a name for this. He calls it the secretary syndrome. And he defines it as this reoccurring pattern where somebody claims they had a special, private connection with Osho. Why? To make their own personal agendas seem more legitimate, to basically rewrite what Osho wanted after he was gone. And he makes the case that this isn't a one-off thing. He lists other former secretaries, Lakshmi, Sheila, Neelam, and says they all did the same thing. So by putting Anando on this list, he's framing her actions not as just a personal memory dispute, but as part of a much bigger recurring political issue. And this, according to Amrito, gets right to the heart of it. He shares a private comment he says Anando made about Jayesh, the guy Osho appointed chairman. She supposedly said, "I have fought him for a decade and now I know that I can't win. If I can't win, then I quit." Now, if that's true, it completely reframes everything. It suggests this isn't about principle, but about a decade-long power struggle she knew she was losing. So you see, what this all really boils down to is something way bigger than just a disagreement over who was in a room on a particular night. From the perspective of Amrito's rebuttal, this is a calculated fight over the official story. It's a battle for control of the narrative that will shape how people see Osho's work for years and years to come. And that leaves us with this really big question, one that goes way beyond just this one story. When a leader isn't here to speak for themselves anymore and the people closest to them are telling completely different stories, who gets to decide what's true? Who really becomes the